All right, a client of mine for many years brought in this Fender Bassman, and he said it's a 67, and he said it's been sitting in a garage in Mississippi or a shed for like 10 years. At some point, someone put in a grounded power cable, but they broke off the ground. It's got a lot of corrosion on all the metal. The chassis straps are all rusted out. The handle hardware is all rusted out. Corner protectors aren't that pretty. A lot of dirt, just crumbly yuck all over the faceplate. Corrosion on the chrome logo. I'm not going to have time to give you close-ups of all that. Maybe I'll show you bits as we go. Deep switch doesn't want to move. Bright switch barely wants to move. There's a crack on the knob on the bass channel volume. Let's see, the knobs aren't lined up properly. Yeah, turn it all the way counterclockwise, and it's, just under 9 there. That one's good. That one's okay. We'll see what we see. Let's turn this thing around. Oh my God, so much rust. Oh my, let me give you a little hint of what I'm seeing here, if I can. Jesus, I've never seen one this bad. I hope this is still fixable. Holy cow. There's just flakes of stuff in here. It's like stuff you'd find in the bottom of a charcoal grill down in here. That output transformer's at an angle. I mean, look at this. How does that even get allowed to happen? And the guy says this was his main amp for a long time. Let's see. I'm going to get something to put all this on. I don't want to put this on my nice pretty bench. We're going to get some Tupperware. Let's see if this thing is even savable. Wow. What you can see here is what a lot of the metal on those chassis straps and such look like, as I mentioned, but that stuff's not part of the electronics. So that stuff's not really usually concerned. I'll see if I can get that tube off, cover off later. Let me get the power cable disconnected and get this chassis out of here. Well, I really don't know if this is going to be salvageable. This is just horrible. It makes me ill. I mean, potentially, if I took everything apart and used some navel jelly and got all the rust out of everything, and the transformers are probably fine. They're not really affected by rust. If they're any good, I don't know. The choke's totally loose. Let's see if that even tightens up, if there's any metal for those screws to grab. Just enough. Let's see what horrors await under the doghouse. I already saw something scary on the inside. We'll get to that. I'll get my trash can positioned for this so all the stuff can be knocked off into it. All right, well, someone at some point recapped it. Not great. They're just, the new caps are twisted around the old leads, and they're Samois. A mixture of TADs and SAMWAs, but nothing horrible there. That's all fixable. If you see here the difference where the metal was exposed to the elements versus where it wasn't, this entire chassis should be this. Let me get the worst of the yuck off into the trash can and of the doghouse cover, put it back in the Tupperware with all the other yucky parts. Notice I've got this paper towel down on my bench surface just to help the cleanup. Let me get this ready to show you the other yucky stuff. Well, it's had some work over the years. Not the best work. It's had some mods. You can see someone did a little mod thing here to lift the tone stack on the bass channel. This bias cap was floating around inside. It was a Nishikon, so good cap, but it was secured incorrectly and the positive lead broke off. The positive lead's down here. This was just floating around inside, so that explains that rattle I heard. The inside's not as rusty as the outside, so that's good. It might be salvageable. There's some spots here, over here by these input jacks and by the other input jacks, just where stuff has gotten in. But everything inside is salvageable if these transformers are still good. So I'm not without hope, though I don't think this will ever be really pretty. The outside is terrible, and the tube socket bases are pretty badly rusted. Even this ground switch has got stuff on it, but switches are replaceable. And I'll tell you, I'm not even going to try to salvage these old tube sockets. Those preamp tube sockets are going to get replaced if I do this amp at all. It's just funk nasty, and some Beltons will go in there. Same for the output tube sockets. That's just way too much yuck. You know, let's try something. Let's put a little spot of WD-40 on the chassis rust and see what we might be able to do with this thing. Given that the only thing, you know, flat out horribly wrong with it right now is that missing bias cap, I might change that cap out temporarily and put the 6L6s in and see if it even powers up safely. And it's not grounded, so it won't be completely safe, but I can take precautions. Just see if the transformers are any good before I make any decisions, yay or nay, whether to really take this on. All right, I'm going to spray a little bit of WD-40 in a small area. Not really spray so much as just drizzle out. Just one little test spot. All right, I'm going to let that sit about 15 minutes and wipe it up and see what the difference is. Sometimes I've been able to really make some good headway with stuff like this. It won't be perfect, but it can sometimes get it much better and retard further corrosion. You know, it's going to be the owner's decision ultimately whether to have me make this thing work or whether it'd be better for him to get something else. And I think it's just criminal that this amp ended up like this, but let's see if short of taking it to machine shop and having the whole thing tumble blasted and replated, we can do anything worthwhile. All right, let's see what difference, if any, 15 minutes makes. Believe it or not, from past experience, this is very promising. This is just WD-40 followed by paper towel, which is a little bit abrasive, but not very. But I can already tell this is all crumbly and yucky. This is approaching smooth. What I'm going to propose to the owner, if he wants me to fix this amp, and it's not going to be inexpensive. It would not be a cheap thing to do. I think personally it'd be a worthwhile thing to do. It still costs less than buying another. Well, he said it was a 67. The date codes on the transformers are 66, so it's a 66 or a 67, depending on when it left the factory. I'll see if there's any other date codes floating around. But compared to buying another one, 66 or 67, I can make this thing, I'm pretty sure, really great sounding and performing and a lot prettier. what I would do is I would take everything off the chassis pretty much. I have to. At which point, the outside of the chassis I would do with WD-40 and like 1500 grit followed by 2000 grit wet dry sandpaper that really gets the rust out and leaves a very smooth surface. And then maybe a light shellacking just to keep it from rusting again. This used to have a coating. This metal chassis used to have a coating on the outside, and it's gone away. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's put a new bias cap in place and see if the amp is even safe to power on. Well, I temped in a 50 microfarad 100 volt bias cap, just temp. I would never send one out in the world mounted like that, but just to see if it was safe to power it on. But I'm not going to power it on yet because those diodes measure bad. Several of them are open. Some of them measure wildly different voltages, positive than they should. So that's not safe. So after dinner, I'm going to tack in some 4007s just because that's a cheap and easy way. I can do that really fast just to see if it's worth saving. I can rebuild that bias board properly if nothing else in the amp is messed up. All the power stuff in the doghouse, it's not great, but it's relatively new and not affected by rust. I really just want to know if the transformers are any damn good. That's the goal. All right, so I got a new 2 amp fuse in here. It came in missing one. It's really corroded, but I have enough of a connection for now. And I'm not going to show it close up because I don't want anyone to emulate it out there because it's not safe. But I have a temporary string of 3 1in4007s here, and another one here, and then a little one down here in the bias, just because I didn't want to do a lot of work to make it proper if this amp's going to be a no-go. So we're going to bring it up with a current limiter, light bulb limiter, and a variac. And we're going to start, about 40 volts and work our way up. Because I'm not too concerned about the filter caps. I just want to make sure we have a bias supply and nothing is drastically wrong inside the amp. So away we go. 130 HT, -16 bias. So let's bring this up kind of gradually, but not glacially. Watching the limiter. And the front panel light has come on. We're at 90 volts AC. It's going to be a little bit lower than that because we're about 10 volts under at the wall right now. So far, everything's looking okay. I'm bringing it up to 120 on the variac, which is going to be about 111, 112 right now because of what the wall's doing. And it's going to be a little bit lower than that if there's any current because the light bulb limiter. Let's just see where we're at now. I can't measure ground to the chassis, by the way, because of the rust layer. I got to go to that screw. HT is now 440. That's really good. Bias is -56. On the cold side typically, but that's okay. Better that than too hot. And crucially, do we have grid -45.3? -45.3. That's really good. I'm going to power this off and put these Mesa 6L6 GCs in and power it on, and we'll see where we're at. Also going to make sure that the death cap ground switch position is where I want it to be. All right, so right now with the ground switch in that position, 2.6 volts in this position, 110 volts. Yeah, so that's the safe orientation for us. 2.7 volts. That's much better than 110. That's not necessary. It's not necessarily the case that I would get shocked from this chassis. It's just that the potential is there. How much current would be involved? That's anyone's guess. It's not really anyone's guess. It's anyone's long and complicated and boring calculation. So I'm not going to mess with it. I'm just going to power this thing on. Cross our fingers, bring it out of standby, and see what kind of sounds we get. Isn't that fun? All right, moment of truth. The socket that does not want to come off because it's so rusty is the preamp tube for the normal channel. All right, it's cutting in and out, but that's to be expected with those nasty sockets. Let's give these sockets, pots, a quick little square to clean up. I think they might be salvageable. Well, that's a lot better. Let's see how the bass channel does. A lot of hiss and noise in this amp, but then again, it is what it is. It's going to be a lot happier now that it has a bias again, though, I'll tell you what. Funny how particular circuits are about things like that. All right, let's just see if we get any signal out of either channel. And the normal channel. Well, that's a good sound. Well, believe it or not, that is all incredibly promising. The transformers are working. The circuit board itself is in pretty good shape. The pots are salvageable. The jacks, whatever for those, probably time for new jacks. Switches, if I need to replace them, I will. It looks like the only one that's really fugly is the polarity switch. And I'll probably give that a clean cosmetically, but I'm going to disconnect it when I put in a real power cable. It needs new tube sockets. It needs some chassis cleanup. How heroic that is, whether I do it for reals though, really get it as good as possible, or just make it a lot better than it is now, that's up to the owner. But I think this actually can be saved. So remember this video, this moment, and those nasty sounds you just heard, but hey, they were sounds that you heard. That's promising. Part 2 should be fun.